Now imagine this. You are on a flight and the pilot makes an announcement. The same old greeting, a mention of the flight duration, the distance which will be covered. But before the captain introduces the crew, he or she says, you are on board a one-pilot flight. There is no co-pilot in the cockpit. It's the captain alone. How would you feel? I suggest you process that information fast and come up with an answer at the earliest, but what I just narrated could soon become a reality. If some airlines are to have their way, planes will soon have no co-pilots. I know what some of you are thinking. What if the pilot falls sick? What if something happens while he or she is in the washroom? We will get to that soon. First, the recent developments. More than 40 countries have written to the United Nations. They want its aviation standards wing, the ICAO, or the International Civil Aviation Organization, to give a clearance for the takeoff of single-pilot flights. Which are these countries that want to do away with co-pilots? The likes of Germany, the United Kingdom, New Zealand. In fact, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency is working with plane makers to make solo pilot flights a reality. Europe wants to make co-pilots redundant by 2027. We are talking about 5 years from now. It's not hard to understand why countries and airlines favor a solo pilot arrangement. One, it cuts costs. Paying one pilot is easier on the pocket than paying two. What's more, a one-pilot flight also helps address the big problem of crew shortage. But is the ask too much? Well, depends on whom you ask. Yes, cockpits have evolved over the years. Like in mid-1900s, you had at least 5 people in the cockpit. A captain, a co-pilot, a radio operator, a navigator, and a flight engineer. Today, there are mostly just 2 cockpit crew. That's because over the years, technological advancement has made others redundant. Airlines argue that time has come to do away with the co-pilot too. Many military aircraft already have a single pilot. To do some smaller planes, so why not adopt the same arrangement for civil aviation at large? Well, the question makes sense, but here's a counter question. Are we there yet? Is our technology ready to take on the task of the co-pilot? On a normal day, a co-pilot coordinates with the ATC or the air traffic control. He or she reads the checklist, performs safety checks, be it before the flight, during takeoff, or after the flight. The first officer also assists the captain throughout the flight and ensures that the captain has not missed anything critical. Can computers do all of the above? Pilots say no. Computers can't replace a co-pilot. Yes, the plane flies on autopilot for the most part, but the most critical bits are still handled by pilots. I'm talking about takeoff and landing. What happens if the only pilot in the cockpit falls sick while the plane is approaching its destination? Or a second before takeoff? Also, what happens in case of an emergency? While the captain takes a final decision, the truth is the 2 pilots work together and respond to any emergency. Leaving it onto just one person to take a life and death call can also be overwhelming, perhaps lead to an error in judgment. Also, having a co-pilot ensures that the cockpit is never left unattended. It also splits the workload and ensures that pilots are not fatigued. Also, an important question, what if a lone pilot goes rogue? Some of you may remember the 2015 Germanwings crash. Flight 9525 was en route Dusseldorf. It had taken off from Barcelona. There were 144 passengers on board and 6 crew members. Andreas Lubitz was one of the pilots. He was actually the first officer or the co-pilot. When the captain was out of the cockpit, Lubitz locked the cockpit door, took control of the plane and crashed it into the Alps. You get what I'm referring to. Handing over the cockpit controls to one person comes with a lot of risk. It can be dangerous. But American plane maker Boeing insists that the technology is there for a single pilot and that it's now up to passengers to be comfortable with the idea. But who in today's world will take Boeing for its word, especially when it comes to safety? China's Eastern Airlines is among the many in the industry that is now looking to fly single-pilot flights. One of its pilots co-authored this research. It reads, "The high costs of pilot training and remuneration have placed a heavy financial burden on airlines, prompting people to actively study single-pilot operations." It says that such an operation requires a new framework. Reallocating functions has been challenging. The paper goes on to say how takeoff or landing can be automated or could be done with the help of a ground staff. Sure, this is what the future looks like. But are we ready to pivot just yet? China's Eastern Airlines is the same operator that had a fatal crash in March this year. You see, safety is of paramount importance in flying. Airlines and countries must ensure that they don't gamble safety in a quest for profit. They must remember passenger safety comes first, money later. Let's also hope the United Nations Aviation Standard Authority keeps this in mind. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.